So I'm going to share the biggest job hack for 2026. So if you're looking for a job, please stay tuned. We're going to get into it. And why am I even jumping to 2026 when I'm recording this in October 2025? It's because right now, if you're currently interviewing in October, you're in a pretty good space. You're probably going to land a job before the new year ends. But if you're not, what is happening is that people are starting to wind down, right? Because November, December, like, let's be honest, like, people aren't really working. So if you are looking for a job by the end of the year, I think go full force and submit your applications, reach out to people and do all of that. But if you're thinking, hey, in the next 6 months, I want a job, this video is for you, right? Because what I'm about to do is I'm about to share something that completely flips the traditional job search on its head. And it's not really about optimizing your resume or networking harder. It's about becoming the author of your own career story, right? Traditional job search looks like you find a job posting, right? You're using Indeed, LinkedIn, whatever job board. You tailor your resume. Now, people who have mastered the job search game know that you need one master resume because you're looking for one job that has the skill sets that you have. So when you tailor your resume, you're only tweaking a few things so that way you can mass apply because the job game right now, 2025, 2026, is about having quality, aka a really, really good resume, and then scaling that. Okay. And then you submit it and wait. This process is you're reactive, right? You're not being proactive. You're kind of like, okay, I've done the thing, I've searched, I've sent it out. And then you become one of 300 applicants, 600 applicants saying the same thing or doing the same thing. And we know this because even though we know it's not true, when you go on LinkedIn, it says like, well, I guess this part is true. It says X number of people clicked onto the job. Some people take that to mean that X number of people apply to the job, which is not necessarily true because every click counts as one person. So it could be someone clicking multiple times, or it could just be someone clicked on the job, but they did not apply. But the number can still seem scary, right? If it says 700 people clicked on this job, even if we assume that half of those people ended up applying or half of those people were real applicants, that's still a lot, right? So it can be a little bit scary. But here's what nobody tells you. You're playing a game you can't win because when you're doing what everyone else is doing, you disappear into the noise, right? And sometimes people do win, right? So I'm not saying that like cold applying, meaning submitting your application, is not a way to get a job, but it's much harder to get a job in this way. So, um, and I just want to reiterate who this is for. If you are looking for a job this week to pay rent, this is probably not the video for you. This is a much longer play, right? If you're strategically looking for the right role and you're willing to invest some time, maybe 10 hours to truly stand out, keep watching because this is how you get ahead of the curve. This is how you get those six-figure remote jobs. This is how you get the jobs that like you're like, oh wow, how do you have all these perks? How do you have all these things? This is how you do it, right? So, um, and I work in tech. I've been in tech for a few years now. Before I used to work for the government, local government, and then before that I worked for nonprofit, and then before that I worked for higher ed, and then before that I worked for as a school social worker. So I worked in a school. I say this to say that I've been in very different settings and different types of job and industry types, which ask for slightly different things. My current knowledge, because I work there, is tech. So a lot of what I say is going to come from a tech perspective. With that said, if you're in tech, you already know that part of the application process, you're usually going through about 5 interviews, and you usually will have an assessment or take home project um, in your interview process, right? And what I'm going to advocate for in this video is that you kind of take that process and you bring it up in the cycle, meaning that rather than waiting for the fourth or fifth interview where you're doing this assessment, you do it as part of your application. And now some of you might hear that and go, why do I need to do all this work? And if that's how you feel, that's fine. You can X out of this video now. But if you understand that the job market is saturated and you want to get ahead, continue. Okay. So there's this um concept. Where's the book? From Austin Kleon in this book. Let me just make sure you can see it because I can't see my video. Okay. In this book, Steal Like an Artist, right? And in it, he talks about the idea of writing the book you want to read. And I want to take that concept and bring it back to career. I'm going to be talking about two Austins here, so please don't lose me. So right now we're talking about Austin Kleon, right? And Austin is talking about creative work, but if we apply it to job hunting, instead of asking, do I fit the job description, ask, what would I create if I were already in this role, right? And long before I even started thinking in this way, I always, when I looked at a job description, either for myself or if I was working with someone in my job, I've always worked in workforce development. The first thing I would always ask on a job description is, what problem am I solving? Why are they hiring for this role? Because honestly, someone's only hiring you because you're solving a problem that's either going to save them time or make them money or both, right? So you need to figure out what that is for yourself and then obviously set yourself up as the best person to do that. So in using Austin Kleon's idea of write the book that you want to read, he kind of uses examples of write your own fan fiction, write your own sequel of to either movies or whatever, you know. And the idea there is you're thinking to yourself, what's missing? What would I build? How would I continue this story, right? And I want us to think, how does this actually work in practice for the job search? Right? Because it's not just about daydreaming, it's practical, solving a problem. And that makes me think about I don't believe in dream jobs. I believe in aligned jobs, meaning that a job has several functions, right? Obviously, the most obvious one is pay your bills for the here and now. But beyond that, it's also about, yes, pay my bills. So there's a monetary attachment to it to pay for the lifestyle that you want. But there's also learning. So every time you go into a job, either you're getting paid the amount that you want or higher, or you're learning, and ideally both, right? And when you start thinking about that, you're like, okay, what does that then mean for the job I'm going to do day to day? Right? Because a dream job usually means your passion, right? That's usually where people lean into. But an aligned job means that it's meeting at least the basic needs you have for your finances. It's meeting the basic need of learning and maybe a little bit more, right? So it fits your current career, your current skill set, right? And not only does it fit it, but maybe it even challenges you a little bit more to get better, right? Um, and it matches what you want for this season of life. And I want to iterate that. It matches what you want for this season of life. It does not mean you need to be here for the rest of your life. It just means that right now in this season, maybe I need a remote job. Maybe I just need a job to hold me over. Maybe I really need to learn how to sell. So I'm going to take the sales job. And I need to learn how to sell because I want to open my own business. And I know that sales is important. Or it could be, I'm just really interested in AI and I know that it's going to be around for a long amount of time. So let me get into a job that forces me to use AI every day. There's so many reasons why a job is going to be aligned for you in this moment, but you need to figure that out before you move forward, right? And then from there, you need to pick something that makes you genuinely curious. And that goes back to what I said about alignment for this season of your life. And then lastly, it opens you up to feedback. Excuse me. It opens up you to feedback and new approaches, right? So in doing this new job, you're able to see other ways of thinking. You're able to do other things and determine for yourself, hey, do I want to continue this? Do I want to learn this more? Or do I actually think this other way is better? But you get to decide because you've been doing it, right? So because here's the thing, this whole approach only works if you're actually curious, right? If you're not curious about what you're doing in your day-to-day job, then it does not work, right? So if you're forcing yourself to care about something just to get hired, you burn out before you even start. Because even if you quote unquote go into a lazy job, a lazy girl job, a thing about a lazy girl job is that you still have to show up to work every day. Right. So if you don't know your why, if you're not aligned, it's going to be more of a burden than be the quantum leap that you need it to be. If you're following me, please write in the chat, I'm following you. If you're not, ask questions and as I see them, I'll respond. So going back to this idea, um, let's talk about. I have to take a quick break, so I'm back. What were we talking about? Okay, so going back to still like an artist and write what you want, right? When you're looking at a job, you really are looking at the problem that needs to be solved. What is that problem? And read the job description thoroughly and ask yourself, what problem are they solving? And usually it's around how are you going to be making them money in this role, or how are you going to save them money or save them time, right? Because time is money, right? If for whatever reason you can't figure it out, the language is too jargony for you, pop it in ChatGPT or your favorite LLM and figure it out. Then step two is research deeply, right? Research the company, use the product yourself, read the Reddit threads, the reviews, see what people are saying about this company and this product, and find the gaps. What didn't they make? What is missing? So let's say be social media, right? Hulu, Netflix, etc. Now, maybe I just don't know how to do this, but on Netflix, if you start watching something and you no longer want to watch it, you can take it off of your watch list. You cannot do that for Hulu, right? Or I think anyone else really, or Disney, let's say. So if I was applying for a job as like a product person or a UX UI person at Hulu or Disney, one of the things I would say is, hey, if I was to do this job, this is something I would do, and this is how I know that it's something that's needed. And I'll pull up, some Reddit comments, my own experience, etc., and say this is how it's going to help us. It's going to make customers happier, right? And obviously, happier customers mean they stay longer because little stuff like that add up to people wanting to stay or not, right? So that's what I mean by what's missing. What didn't they make? Because you are curious about the product yourself and that thing, you're going to come up with those ideas. Kind of going back to what I said earlier about write the sequel, write the thing that you want to read. Okay. So step three, go back to first principles. This is a concept from Paul Thiel, I don't know. And this is where things get interesting. Don't just look at what exists now. Go back to the origins, right? Who created this thing? Why did they create it, right? What were they trying to solve then, and have they solved it now? And what new problems have evolved since they created it, right? And I think that's really important because people think once technology is created, it's done. But you know, like once you create, I don't know, the printing press, now you need to figure out like how to make sure that ink doesn't smudge on the paper and stuff like that. So what is a new problem that has come up with this new technology, with this new products that you can now solve, right? Um it's going back to that first idea and then using that to now figure out what is a current day thing that needs solutioning. Step number 4. Your dream, your dream team, right? How you imagine things comes from your dream team. It took me a second. I was like, what am I trying to say here? When you're trying to think something through, you're thinking it through because you've had your own experience and you've had input from other people. Now you've had this vision, this dream of like this is what it could be, but it's come from a team of other people, right? So imagine all your favorite thinkers, all your favorite creators got together and you are leading the crew. You're the boss here, right? Because you've come up with from all their insights and your lived experience, you've come up with a vision, your dream, and now you've assembled all these people who you know are brilliant, right? What would you make together? This is where the magic happens because now you've created something new. And that new thing you've created is what you're able to now share with the world and say, hey, as a job seeker, this is what I would create for you that is new, you know? And an example of what this actually looks like is in my own experience, when I was applying to jobs, I would apply to the job and then I would email the hiring manager and say, hey, based on what you've done, I would do two things. Either I would say, this is what I think would work, in the future, or I would say, this is what I've done in the past that is similar, and I would bring that same expertise to this. I will say 9 out of 10 times when I use my past and connect to this in the future, that worked better than me just kind of saying, this is what I want to do in the future. But I have had some friends who have said, this is my ideas. Like, let's say I know one of my friends, her company does designing, and she would email different designers and say, hey, I love your products. Here are some ways I think it can be tweaked and we can improve on it to partner and make it better. And she's been hired as a consultant based on that. So those are all different ways that you are able to stand out in the crowd, in the sea of people, right? And there's actually a name for this. So I would like to take credit, but I cannot. As I mentioned earlier, it's another Austin Belkak, Austin Belcak, and he calls it the Value Validation Project, or the VVP. And what it is a real deliverable, right? It shows how you'd actually solve a problem, and then it gives them a preview of what it is like to work with you and how you think, right? And also Tim Ferriss, he's the person who wrote the 4 Hour Work Week. He also talks about something similar in his book, where he says the most successful people show some form of like a VVP or MVP to validate their ideas. They don't just talk about what they could do; they show you rather than tell you. So that's pretty much what this concept is. Whether you want to call it a VVP, MVP, I don't really have a name for mine. I'm just like, show your brilliance. What this does is that you take what you've created and you send it directly to the hiring manager, not through the application portal, not to HR, and it helps them see you as an answer to their problems, right? And what you're pretty much saying to them is, hey, I see that you're trying to solve X problem. Here's how I would approach it. And from there, it kind of invites them, if they're interested, to talk to you more, right? You're not asking for permission. You are starting a conversation as a peer. You're saying, "Hey, I'm so sure of what I bring to the table that I want to have this conversation with you." And then also, people want people who have conviction, who have energy, who are confident. So that's one way to do it. And it's all email. So even if you're not totally confident yet, it's fine. Like, send the email. Have Claude help you write that out. And I say Claude over ChatGPT because Claude does make you sound more human. Whereas like ChatGPT is really good for ideas, but Claude is better with writing. Okay. So now you might be thinking, does this actually work for my role? And anything that you do, I will say it works. If you're a product manager, you might create a product spec for a feature that they're missing, or a competitive analysis showing gaps in their current offering. And I mentioned the whole Netflix, Hulu, Disney thing earlier. If you're in marketing, a campaign strategy with actual ad concepts of their new product launch, or a content calendar addressing a gap you've identified in their messaging and their social media. You can send that over to them. If you're a data analyst, you can send an analysis of their publicly available data to show that you can do this. You can use customer reviews, social media sentiment, showing insights that maybe they've been overlooking, in a gap that they've been overlooking. And I can go on and on for sales, operations, designers, etc. But the key here is that um, it's not about being perfect. It's about showing you can think critically about their specific problems, and you're interested in them. You're not just spraying and praying and applying for 500 roles. You have taken the time for them. So with that said, I'm not asking you to do this for every single application. I'm asking you to do this for the companies that you really, really want. Right? So let's say you're applying to 20 jobs a day, like pick the five, pick the four, pick the three, pick the two that you really, really care about, and say, hey, I'll do some extra work here. And the more you do this, uh, several things will happen, right? Because let's be honest about this investment. This might take you about 5 hours per company if you're going really, really, really deep, or sometimes more. And that's a lot of time. And if there obviously there's a difference here if you're doing this while you already have a job and you do this on the side, versus if this is kind of like your full-time job until you get a job, you can go deeper in different ways. So these numbers will also fluctuate, right? And you might need to do this for 3 to 5 companies before one actually responds. I think a lot of research says response rate for cold messages is about 10%. So the more you send, obviously, then that 10% becomes better for you. And that's just a reality, and that's okay, right? And this works best for companies with, I'll say pretty much any company, honestly, but What you really want to do is to target specific people and understand the larger you go, meaning that if you're going above maybe 500 employees, they're probably getting more and more messages, right? So you might have to try different tactics. Not only are you sending the email, but maybe you're also like engaging with their content on LinkedIn and things of that nature, right? The bigger the company is, the more visible they are to other people, the more people are going to be trying similar things or ways to get their attention, right? And you also want a company that's big enough to have real problems that you can search and see, but small enough that or teams that are small enough that you can actually reach decision makers, right? Because at some point, it's also about the teams versus the company at large. Because, for example, if you say you want to work for Meta, Meta's really big, but if you say you want to work for Threads, the Threads team is smaller than the Meta team, right? So, stuff like that. And again, I keep repeating this and I'll repeat it again. Be genuinely curious about the thing, the product, the company, the whatever. Like it's not just about the money. It's not just about the name brand. It's like, for example, I just mentioned Threads. Do you actually care about this form of social media? Do you have ideas about this form of social media? Why do you care about this over Instagram, over WhatsApp, over Facebook? Right? Like you would need to answer those questions for yourself first. So by the time you get into the interview, you're able to say that confidently. People who are hiring you want to know that you care about the product. And this doesn't mean that it has to be your whole life, but it does mean you're curious about it, right? Don't waste 10 hours, 5 hours, whatever on a company that you don't actually care about. It's a waste of everyone's time. And several things can happen, right? Once you send the email, they can either love it and you get an interview, maybe you get a job, amazing. Or they never respond, which is a reality. And it's nothing about your own worth. It's just a reality. And even if scenario two happens where they don't get back to you, you've deepened your knowledge in something that you actually care about. Again, that's why curiosity matters. And you've built something real for your portfolio. So now when you do go to the next company, when you do have the next pitch, you have something to pull from, which will also make the time that you're spending creating this much shorter, which we love. Okay. And you've practiced thinking like someone who already has the job, and that doesn't disappear. That becomes part of who you are. So start small, but make it happen, right? The 2 hour version is that you pick one company you're actually interested in. You spend 2 hours researching. You use your product. You read their blog. You check their Reddit. Or whatever other social media they have, and you write one paragraph, and it's like, I noticed you're trying to solve X. Here's one idea that I have. Here's why I think it might work. And then find someone relevant on LinkedIn and send it to them. That's it, and see what happens. Maybe try to do this a few times so you get in the habit of doing it. And as I mentioned earlier, if only 10% of people or reply, give yourself maybe do 10 and maybe one person will reply. And that way you just get yourself in that habit. And you can also do these for companies that you don't really, really, really care about. That way, these are your practice companies. So by the time you get to the companies you really care about, you're a little bit more fine tuned. So you don't waste that one shot that you have, right? You might be surprised. So, why this matters now. In 2026, everyone is using AI to generate applications, right? Everyone's optimizing their resumes for the same keywords. Everyone's writing the same cover letters. But sometimes you have to be the person who stands out. You have to be the person who understands why you're doing it and what you're doing it for, right? And someone who can think from a foundational place to see, like, where's this company coming from and where are they going, right? And that helps you stand out dramatically, right? The more automated and the more tech job applications become, the more valuable genuine creativity and deep thinking becomes. And one of the reasons why I love interviewing and the job application process, because it really does lay out the format of the job that you're going to be doing. So if you're able to be curious enough during the job application process, it's going to bleed over to your actual real job. And companies know this. This is why they have the process that they have, because they're looking for specific types of people. And if you're able to show that up front, you can even cut your own job search down a little bit, right? So here's what I want you to do. Don't just apply for your next job. Do these 3 steps. One, pick one company you're genuinely curious about. Two, research the problem that they're trying to solve. And three, create something that shows how you think about solving it, even if it's just a one-page proposal. And in essence, write the book that you want to read, right? Because the job you really want, it might not exist yet, right? Technology is changing so quickly, but if you're following your curiosity and you're sharing that curiosity and you're reaching out, right, you're going to show them what they need, right? Steve Jobs has a quote about like, If you ask people if they needed like a MacBook, they would have told you no. If you ask, oh, actually, I think what he said was like, if you ask people if they needed transportation, they would have said they wanted a faster horse, right? And then I'm probably mixing up people in quotes. Point is, people don't always know what they need, but you might you might see the gap, and that is what is your edge. So use your edge, right? And let me know in the comments. Let me know, have you ever created something like this to get a job? What are some of your tips and tricks to get a job? Um, did you reach out with examples of what you're thinking? What happened? I'd love to hear your story. So let me know. I'm going to stop babbling now. All right. Bye.